The neon glow of Chicago's skyline flickered through the grimy windows of Wilson's corner store. Nathan Holloway adjusted his coat against the biting autumn wind as he approached the familiar storefront. At 68, his pace had slowed, but his mind remained razor-sharp, honed by decades of tracing financial corruption through tangled webs of numbers and deceit. As he reached for the door handle, he felt it, a presence, the kind that made the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. A patrol car sat idling across the street, its occupants barely concealed by the tinted windows. Nathan knew the signs. He had spent years exposing fraud and laundering schemes hidden deep within government budgets, and he understood that some enemies never truly disappeared. Inside the store, the warm scent of aging wood and freshly brewed coffee greeted him. Tom Wilson, the aging shop owner, gave him a nod. "Usual paper, Nathan?" Nathan smiled, stepping towards the counter. "You know me too well, Tom." But before he could reach for his wallet, the door swung open with a chime. Two uniformed officers stepped in. One of them, a young cop with nervous eyes, looked directly at Nathan. The other, older, sharper, wore the expression of someone who had already made up his mind. "Nathan Holloway?" the senior officer asked. Nathan met his gaze without flinching. "That depends." "Who's asking?" The officer pulled out a folded warrant. "You need to come with us." Nathan took a slow breath, his instincts screaming that this wasn't a routine arrest. Nathan exhaled slowly, his mind racing through the possibilities. He had anticipated something like this for years, an attempt to silence him, to make the past disappear. But why now? Tom Wilson shifted behind the counter, his wrinkled hands gripping the edge of the register. "What's this about, officers?" he asked, his voice edged with suspicion. The younger cop, Daniel Mitchell, hesitated. His grip on the cuffs tightened, but he didn't move. The senior officer, Brian Carter, shot him a look before turning back to Nathan. "Just come quietly, Mr. Holloway. Don't make this difficult." Nathan considered his options. Running wasn't one of them. He was too old for that, and besides, he had nothing to hide, at least nothing they could prove. But the fact that they hadn't stated a charge was telling. This wasn't about justice. It was about control. "Do I get to know why I'm being arrested?" Nathan asked, his voice calm. "You'll be briefed at the station," Carter replied, stepping forward. Nathan glanced out the window. The patrol car wasn't alone anymore. A black SUV, unmarked but unmistakably government-issued, had pulled up behind it. Inside, a shadowed figure sat watching. A chill ran down his spine. This wasn't just about him. As Carter reached for his arm, Nathan caught Mitchell's uncertain expression. The kid was new, unsure. That meant there was still a chance. Nathan looked him straight in the eye. "Son, you sure you want to be part of this?" Mitchell hesitated, just long enough for Carter to shove Nathan against the counter. The cold steel of the cuffs locked around his wrists. Outside, the man in the SUV lifted a phone to his ear. "Target secured." And just like that, Nathan Holloway disappeared into the night. The cold steel of the handcuffs bit into Nathan Holloway's wrists as Officer Brian Carter pushed him into the back seat of the squad car. The vehicle smelled of old leather and stale coffee, but Nathan barely noticed. His mind was already working through the situation. Why now? Who had given the order? And more importantly, where were they taking him? Daniel Mitchell slid into the driver's seat, his hands gripping the wheel tighter than necessary. Nathan caught his eyes in the rearview mirror. There was hesitation there, doubt gnawing at the young officer's conscience. Carter, on the other hand, was perfectly at ease. He sat in the passenger seat, flipping through his phone as if this were just another routine pickup. After a few moments, he spoke without looking back. "Don't bother memorizing the route, old man. You're not going where you think you are." Nathan kept his expression neutral, but his stomach tightened. That confirmed it. This wasn't a standard arrest. If they weren't taking him to the precinct, that meant no booking, no paperwork, no phone call. They were going to disappear him. He shifted slightly, testing the cuffs. No give. But that wasn't his real concern. His real concern was that someone had decided his time was up. Outside, the city lights blurred as they turned onto an unfamiliar highway, heading away from downtown. Nathan clenched his jaw. Whatever was coming, he needed to be ready. The squad car sped down the darkened highway, streetlights casting fleeting glows over Nathan's face. He could feel the shift in direction, the way the car veered away from the typical police routes. They weren't going to any station. This was off the books. Mitchell's hands were still tight on the wheel. His knuckles whitened every time he glanced at Nathan through the rearview mirror. The kid was nervous. That was good. It meant he hadn't fully sold his soul yet. Nathan leaned forward slightly. "You're new to the force, aren't you?" he said, his voice calm but deliberate. "Shut up," Carter snapped without turning around. Nathan ignored him. His eyes stayed on Mitchell. "Let me guess. Fresh out of the academy? First real assignment? You didn't sign up for this, did you?" Mitchell swallowed hard but didn't respond. Carter let out a short laugh. "You think you're clever, Holloway? You think you can mess with his head? Kid's doing his job." "Is he?" Nathan pressed. "Because last I checked, a lawful arrest requires charges, paperwork, a destination that isn't some black site prison." He let the words hang. "Unless, of course, you're not taking me in at all." Mitchell's grip on the wheel tightened further. He didn't speak, but the flicker of doubt in his eyes deepened. Carter finally turned, his expression shifting from amusement to irritation. "Listen, you old—" Before he could finish, his phone buzzed. He answered it instantly. "Yeah, we have him. No issues. We'll be there in 15. Nathan caught the glance Carter gave Mitchell as he ended the call. A warning, a silent command to stay in line. Nathan sat back, his mind sharpening with a single thought. Wherever they were taking him, he couldn't afford to arrive. Nathan Holloway subtly adjusted his posture in the back seat, keeping his breathing steady. He could feel the tension rising in the squad car, especially from Mitchell. The young officer's shoulders were rigid, his fingers flexing against the steering wheel as they continued down the darkened highway. Nathan stole a glance outside. The bright skyline of Chicago had faded into the distance, replaced by industrial buildings and the stretches of barren roads. Wherever they were taking him, it wasn't anywhere near a precinct. Carter, still in the passenger seat, tapped his fingers against his knee impatiently. "Pick up the pace, Mitchell," he ordered. "We're already behind schedule." Mitchell didn't respond right away, but after a moment, he pressed his foot harder on the gas. The speedometer climbed. Nathan felt the shift in movement, his mind racing with calculations. He knew the moment to act was approaching. The road ahead curved sharply around a construction site. The highway lights flickered unevenly, casting long, fractured shadows. Nathan leaned forward just enough for his voice to reach Mitchell. "You don't have to do this, son," he murmured. Mitchell's jaw clenched. Carter scoffed. "He knows what side he's on." Nathan kept his eyes locked on Mitchell through the rear-view mirror. "Are you sure about that?" The car barreled toward the curve, and for a split second, Nathan saw it, the flicker of doubt in Mitchell's expression. And that was all he needed. Mitchell hesitated, his grip on the wheel tightening. The words Nathan had planted in his mind were taking root, warring with whatever orders he had been given. Then, in a single, decisive moment, he acted. Mitchell slammed the brakes. The squad car screeched, tires skidding against the asphalt as the vehicle jerked violently to the side. Carter cursed, thrown forward against the dashboard. Nathan braced himself, letting his body roll with the impact. Before Carter could react, Mitchell reached for his service weapon. "Get out," he ordered, voice shaking but firm. Carter spun toward him, eyes wide. "What the hell are you—" "I said get out!" Mitchell's hands were steady now, his gun trained directly at Carter's chest. Nathan remained still, watching, calculating. This was unexpected, but it was an opportunity. Carter's face twisted in fury. "You're making a mistake, rookie." "Yeah?" Mitchell's voice was tight. "So were you." In a flash, Carter moved for his own weapon, but Mitchell was faster. Bang! The gunshot echoed through the empty highway. Carter slumped back, groaning, his hand clutching his bleeding shoulder. Mitchell's breath was ragged as he turned, fumbling with the keys. In seconds, Nathan's cuffs were off. "You don't have much time," Mitchell said. "Go." Nathan didn't hesitate. He pushed the door open, stepping into the cold night air. A black SUV, the same one he had seen earlier, was approaching fast from the distance. "Come with me," Nathan said. Mitchell shook his head. If I run now, I'm dead anyway. I'll buy you time. Nathan studied him for a brief second, then nodded. And then he ran, disappearing into the shadows just as the SUV's headlights swept over the scene. Behind him, Mitchell raised his hands, stepping away from the car as new figures emerged from the approaching vehicle. Nathan didn't stop to look back. He had his chance, and he wasn't about to waste it. Malcolm Holloway sat in his downtown Chicago office, scanning the documents spread across his desk. The emergency motion he had filed for his father's release had gone nowhere. No official records of an arrest, no case number, nothing. Nathan Holloway had vanished, and that meant one thing. Someone powerful wanted him gone. His phone buzzed. Eleanor Price's name flashed on the screen. He answered immediately. "I checked every detention center in the city," Eleanor said without preamble. "He's not in any of them." Malcolm's jaw tightened. "Then they're holding him off the books." "That's what I'm thinking," Eleanor replied. "I also called in a few favors. A source at the courthouse told me something interesting. There's a sealed file on your father under national security restrictions." Malcolm leaned forward. "Since when does a retired accountant qualify as a national security threat?" "That's what we need to find out," Eleanor said. "But there's more. I got word that a rookie cop, Daniel Mitchell, was seen bringing your father in. And then, an hour later, he was spotted at a hospital with a gunshot wound." Malcolm stiffened. "Is he alive?" "Yeah, but he's under police watch." Malcolm didn't hesitate. "I need to talk to him." 30 minutes later, Malcolm pulled into the hospital's parking lot. The entrance was guarded. Two uniformed officers stood near the front doors, their eyes scanning every person who walked in. If they were watching Mitchell, they were expecting someone to come looking for him. Malcolm couldn't go through the front. He needed another way in. Circling the building, he spotted a side entrance marked "Authorized Personnel Only." He checked his phone. A quick call to an old friend in the hospital's legal department got him what he needed. A few minutes later, he walked through the employee door wearing a stolen lab coat over his suit. Inside, the hospital bustled with late-night activity, but Malcolm kept his pace steady. He found Mitchell's room number on the directory and took the stairs instead of the elevator. Less chance of being stopped. As he neared room 314, he slowed. A lone officer stood guard outside, scrolling through his phone. Malcolm exhaled, straightened his posture, and strode forward with confidence. "I need to check on my patient," he said, flashing a fake ID badge. The officer barely looked up. "Doctor?" "Yes, Dr. Holloway." Malcolm pushed past him before the cop could process the name. Inside, Mitchell was awake, his left arm bandaged, his face pale. He turned his head sharply as Malcolm shut the door. "Who the hell?" "I'm Malcolm Holloway," he said quickly. "Nathan Holloway is my father." Mitchell froze. "You helped him escape," Malcolm continued. "I need to know where he is." Mitchell swallowed hard. "I don't know. He ran. They took me in before I could follow." Malcolm's stomach clenched. "Who's they?" Mitchell hesitated, but before he could answer, the door burst open. The officer outside had finally figured out who Malcolm was, and he wasn't alone. The door slammed open and two officers stormed in, hands hovering over their holsters. Malcolm barely had time to react before one of them grabbed his arm, yanking him away from Mitchell's bed. "You've got a lot of nerve walking in here, Holloway," the older officer sneered, pressing Malcolm against the wall. "You think you can just waltz in and talk to our witness?" Mitchell winced as he tried to sit up. "He's not a damn suspect. He's Nathan Holloway's son," he said through gritted teeth. "He just wanted to talk." The officer ignored him. "You're obstructing an active investigation," he told Malcolm, tightening his grip. "You're coming with us." Malcolm's mind raced. He had expected resistance, but this was too fast, too coordinated. Whoever wanted his father gone wasn't just watching Nathan. They were watching him, too. Then he spotted it. One of the officers, the younger one, was nervous. His stance was tense, his eyes darting toward Mitchell as if expecting him to say something. Doubt. Malcolm took a chance. "You think this is about police work?" he said, locking eyes with the younger officer. "They don't want me arrested. They want me out of the way." The officer hesitated, and that was all the opening Malcolm needed. Malcolm moved fast. Using the officer's moment of hesitation, he twisted sharply, breaking the grip on his arm. He wasn't a fighter, But years in the courtroom had taught him to recognize weakness, and hesitation was the greatest weakness of all. The younger officer barely had time to react before Malcolm shoved him backward, sending him stumbling into the medical tray beside Mitchell's bed. Instruments clattered to the floor as Mitchell flinched, his injured arm jerking in pain. The older officer, however, wasn't so easily thrown off. He recovered quickly, reaching for his baton. "Bad move, Holloway." But before he could swing, Mitchell did something no one expected. He grabbed the IV stand beside him and yanked it forward, striking the officer's knee. The cop let out a sharp grunt, stumbling just enough for Malcolm to seize the opportunity. He delivered a solid shove, sending the officer crashing against the wall. "Go!" Mitchell gasped. Malcolm didn't need to be told twice. He bolted for the door, throwing it open and darting into the hallway. The hospital was alive with movement. Nurses, patients, security guards. But he didn't stop to explain. He ran, weaving through the corridors, his heart hammering in his chest. Behind him, the officers recovered. He could hear their voices shouting into radios. "Holloway is on the move. Lock down the exits." Malcolm skidded around a corner, spotting an exit sign glowing at the end of the hall. He sprinted toward it, shoving open the door and bursting into the cold Chicago night. Just as a black SUV screeched to a stop in front of him, the tinted window rolled down. Eleanor Price sat behind the wheel. "Get in!" she yelled. Malcolm didn't hesitate. He dove into the passenger seat, slamming the door shut as Eleanor hit the gas. The SUV roared forward, tires screeching as they disappeared into the city streets. Malcolm exhaled, trying to steady his breath. "That was close." Eleanor shot him a sharp glance. "Yeah? Well, it's about to get worse." She tossed a folded piece of paper onto his lap. Malcolm opened it, his stomach dropping at the sight of the classified document. It was an internal police memo. Subject, Nathan Holloway. Threat level, high. Authorization for immediate transfer. His father was being moved again, and time was running out. Malcolm gripped the classified memo, his mind racing. His father was being moved. Again. If they lost track of him now, there was no telling where he'd end up. Eleanor swerved through the streets, her expression tight with focus. "The memo says, immediate transfer. That means they're already on the move." Malcolm scanned the document, looking for any detail that could give them an edge. Then he saw it. Transfer location. Black Ridge facility. ETA. 45 minutes. Black Ridge. A privately owned detention site outside the city limits. Not officially affiliated with the police, but well known in certain legal circles for holding people the system wanted to forget. "We have to intercept them before they get there," Malcolm said. "Once he's inside Black Ridge, we won't be able to touch him." Eleanor nodded. "We need backup." Malcolm hesitated. Who could they trust? The department was compromised. The FBI had been silent. But then an idea struck him. "Call Tom Reynolds," he said. Eleanor glanced at him. "The detective? You think he'll help?" "He's been investigating police corruption for years," Malcolm replied. "If anyone has a reason to take these bastards down, it's him." Eleanor didn't argue. She grabbed her phone and dialed. As the call rang, Malcolm turned his gaze to the road ahead. Time was running out. The call connected. "Reynolds," the gruff voice answered. "It's Eleanor Price," she said quickly. "We need your help." There was a pause. "I saw the hospital stunt," Reynolds said. "You're making a lot of enemies, Price." "We don't have time for lectures," Malcolm cut in. "They're moving my father to Black Ridge. If he gets there, he's gone." Another pause, then a sharp exhale. "Damn it. I knew they'd do something like this." "Can you help us?" Eleanor pressed. Reynolds' answer was immediate. "Meet me at the Halstead overpass in 15 minutes. Bring firepower." Eleanor ended the call and tightened her grip on the wheel. "We're going to war, aren't we?" Malcolm stared out the window, his jaw clenched. "Looks like it." 15 minutes later, under the dim orange glow of the overpass lights, Reynolds was waiting. He wasn't alone. 3 other men stood beside him, plainclothes, but their stances screamed law enforcement. "These are my guys," Reynolds said. "The ones who haven't sold their souls." He looked at Malcolm. "You sure about this?" Malcolm nodded. "I'm sure." Reynolds tossed him a bulletproof vest. "Then let's go steal your old man back." As the convoy of cars roared to life, Malcolm checked his watch. Nathan had 20 minutes before Blackridge. They had to move. The night air was thick with tension as Malcolm, Eleanor, and Reynolds sped down the highway, their convoy weaving through sparse late-night traffic. The target was a blacked-out transport van carrying Nathan Holloway, an unmarked vehicle escorted by two police SUVs, all heading toward Blackridge facility. Reynolds' voice crackled over the radio. "Convoy is 2 miles ahead. We have one shot at this." Malcolm checked his watch. 15 minutes until they reached Blackridge. Eleanor, gripping the wheel, glanced at Malcolm. "We need a plan that doesn't end with us in body bags." Malcolm took a breath. "We force them off the road." Reynolds chuckled dryly over the radio. "I like the way you think." Up ahead, taillights flickered in the distance. The transport van. Their target. Reynolds' team split up. One car accelerated, moving ahead to cut off the convoy, while Malcolm and Eleanor closed in from the rear. "Hold tight," Eleanor muttered, slamming her foot on the gas. The SUV lurched forward, barreling toward the back of the convoy. Then the lead escort vehicle suddenly braked. "They know we're here," Reynolds warned. Malcolm's pulse pounded. The time for planning was over. It was time to act. Eleanor yanked the wheel hard to the right, narrowly avoiding a collision as the police SUV in front of them swerved. Tires screeched against asphalt. The convoy had realized they were under attack. Reynolds' voice came sharp over the radio. "We don't have time for a standoff. We need to split them up." Malcolm's eyes locked on the transport van in the center of the formation. That was the key. If they could isolate it, they had a chance. "Force the lead SUV ahead," he ordered. "Cut the second one off from the van." Reynolds' team accelerated, ramming the lead escort from behind. The police vehicle veered off course, forced to recover as the transport van hesitated. That was the opening. Eleanor floored it, pulling alongside the van. Malcolm rolled down the window and raised his weapon, aiming at the tires. 2 quick shots. Pop! Pop! The left rear tire exploded, sending the van fishtailing wildly. The driver lost control. The van spun out, slamming into a guardrail with a sickening crunch. Malcolm's heart pounded. They had stopped it. But before they could celebrate, the doors to the van flew open. Armed men, not cops but private contractors, poured out, rifles raised. One of them grabbed Nathan Holloway by the arm, dragging him out. Malcolm's stomach turned cold. The operation wasn't over. It was just beginning. The night air was pierced by the metallic clatter of rifle bolts snapping into place. The men emerging from the transport van weren't standard law enforcement. These were professionals, private security contractors dressed in tactical gear, moving with the precision of soldiers. Malcolm's breath caught as he saw his father. Nathan Holloway was being yanked from the van, his wrists still bound, his face shadowed with exhaustion, but his eyes sharp. One of the contractors held him firmly, a pistol pressed against his ribs. Reynolds' voice crackled through Malcolm's earpiece. "Those aren't cops. This just got a whole lot worse." Eleanor pulled the SUV to a stop, her hands gripping the wheel. "We can't outgun them," she muttered. Malcolm raised his hands slightly, stepping out onto the pavement. "Let him go," he called out. "You've already lost." The leader of the contractors, a broad-shouldered man with a calm, calculated expression, smiled faintly. "You must be the judge," he said. His tone was almost amused. "You really think this is over?" Malcolm's pulse pounded. They had stopped the convoy, but that didn't mean they had won. The contractor pressed the gun harder against Nathan's ribs. "Walk away," he said, "or your father doesn't make it out of here." Malcolm clenched his fists. They were outnumbered, out-armed, but he wasn't leaving without his father. Nathan Holloway exhaled slowly, meeting Malcolm's eyes. A silent message passed between them. "Don't do anything reckless." Reynolds and his team took position behind the vehicles, weapons drawn, but they didn't fire. Not yet. The tension was razor-thin, the kind that could snap into chaos with a single wrong move. Malcolm kept his hands visible. "You can't win this," he said, voice steady. "You think you can make my father disappear without consequences? Every cop in this city is already looking for him. Every news station is running his name. If you pull that trigger, there's no coming back from it." The leader of the contractors tilted his head, considering. "You're mistaken if you think this is about you," he said. This isn't a negotiation, Judge Holloway. This is a cleanup. He motioned to one of his men. Secure the package. Nathan was yanked backward toward a waiting black SUV. Malcolm's heart slammed against his ribs. Number, this wasn't how it ended. Reynolds' voice crackled over the radio. We need a play, now. Malcolm's mind raced. Then, an idea, a desperate one. He took a slow step forward. You shoot him, he said, locking eyes with the leader, and I release the files. A flicker of hesitation crossed the man's face. Malcolm pressed on. Everything my father documented, the Cavendish Trust, the stolen pension funds, the illegal surveillance program. You think we don't have copies? You think I don't have a dead man's switch? Eleanor, catching on, pulled out her phone and held it up. One button, she said, and every journalist in this city gets the full report. The leader's expression hardened. For the first time, they had him on the defensive. Behind them, Reynolds' team took aim, and then gunfire. A single shot rang out. For a split second, Malcolm thought it was over. But it wasn't Nathan who had been hit. One of the contractors staggered back, clutching his shoulder. From the distance, headlights approached fast. More vehicles. Go, go, the leader barked. The contractors moved fast, dragging their wounded man and piling into the SUV. Nathan was shoved forward, then released as the vehicle peeled away. Reynolds and his team opened fire, but the SUV was armored. Within seconds, it was gone, disappearing into the night. Malcolm barely registered it. He was already moving, catching his father before he could collapse. Nathan looked up at him, eyes filled with something between exhaustion and relief. Took you long enough, he muttered. Malcolm let out a shaky breath. We're not done yet. Because he knew this was just the beginning. The distant hum of retreating engines faded into the night, leaving only the echo of gunfire in its wake. Malcolm still had a tight grip on his father, his heart pounding from the adrenaline. Nathan was weak but conscious, his breath shallow. Eleanor rushed forward. We need to get out of here, now! Reynolds scanned the road, gun still in hand. They'll regroup, he muttered. Those guys weren't police. That was corporate muscle. Private security at its worst. Malcolm helped his father to his feet. They'll come back, he agreed. And next time, they won't just try to move him, they'll kill him. Nathan managed a dry chuckle. Good to know I'm still worth the effort. Eleanor shot him a sharp look. This isn't funny. We need to disappear. Reynolds nodded. I know a place. Safe house, off the grid. We regroup there, figure out our next move. Malcolm hesitated. Number, we don't run. We go on the offensive. Eleanor's eyes widened. Malcolm, they think we're playing defense, he interrupted. That we're just trying to stay alive. But we have something they don't, the truth. Reynolds exhaled sharply. You're saying we take this public? Malcolm met his gaze. No more waiting, no more hiding. We bring the whole damn system down. Reynolds ran a hand through his graying hair, exhaling sharply. Going public is one thing. Surviving long enough to do it is another. Malcolm tightened his jaw. We don't have a choice. The longer we wait, the more control they regain. We need to release the files. Now. Eleanor shook her head. It's not that simple. If we just dump the information online, they'll discredit it. Call it a hoax, a fabrication. She glanced at Nathan. We need more than just documents. We need a first-hand account. Nathan, still leaning on Malcolm for support, let out a weary sigh. You want me to testify? Malcolm met his father's gaze. Not just testify. We put you on camera. A live interview. No editing, no spin. If they see your face, hear your voice, it's a lot harder to bury the truth. Reynolds let out a low whistle. That's bold. Also suicidal. Eleanor hesitated, then nodded. But it might work. Malcolm turned to Reynolds. Can you get us to someone trustworthy in the media? The detective frowned, considering. Then he pulled out his phone. I know a reporter, Judith Winters. She's been digging into police corruption for years. She won't back down. Malcolm's pulse quickened. Then let's set it up. Reynolds hesitated. If we do this, there's no turning back. Malcolm glanced at his father. Nathan gave a slow nod. We were never turning back, Malcolm said. Reynolds dialed the number. The final battle had begun. The safe house was a dimly lit warehouse on the outskirts of Chicago, an old storage facility Reynolds had secured years ago for undercover work. It wasn't much, but it was secure, for now. Inside, Eleanor worked quickly, setting up a camera and a laptop. The live stream needs to be untraceable, she muttered, fingers flying over the keyboard. If they find our location mid-broadcast, we're dead. Nathan sat in a worn-out chair, rubbing his wrists where the restraints had been. His face was pale, but his eyes were sharp. I hope you know what you're doing, he murmured to Malcolm. Malcolm kneeled beside him. They tried to silence you for a reason. That means your story matters. Reynolds checked his watch. Winters is ready. Once we go live, she'll amplify the stream through every independent journalist she knows. Eleanor glanced up. We're almost there. Then a sound outside. A car engine. Reynolds stiffened. No one else should know we're here. Malcolm's stomach tightened. They had to move fast. Eleanor looked at him. We're going live in 60 seconds. You sure about this? Malcolm took a breath. Do it. Eleanor hit the button. The screen flickered, then the live stream went live. A red indicator pulsed in the corner of the screen. Broadcasting. Nathan straightened in his chair, the exhaustion momentarily fading from his face. The camera framed him perfectly. An old man, weary but unbroken, ready to reveal the truth. This is Nathan Holloway, Malcolm began, his voice steady. For years, my father worked within the system, uncovering corruption at the highest levels. He has been hunted, silenced, and nearly killed to keep what he knows from reaching the public. Nathan took a breath. But I'm still here. He launched into the story, the stolen pension funds, the illegal slush accounts, the secret deals between law enforcement and politicians. He named names, dates, locations, hard facts that couldn't be ignored. Eleanor monitored the stream. Viewers are climbing fast. Thousands are watching. Then, static. The video feed glitched. The screen flickered. They're trying to shut us down, she hissed, fingers flying over the keyboard. Outside, footsteps. Shadows moving past the windows. Reynolds pulled his gun. They found us. A loud bang echoed as the front door exploded inward. Men in tactical gear swarmed the room. Nathan barely had time to react before Malcolm lunged, shielding him as chaos erupted. Gunfire. Shouting. The laptop crashing to the floor. The live stream cut to black. The warehouse erupted into chaos. The tactical team stormed in, their black-clad figures moving with ruthless efficiency. Muzzle flashes lit up the darkened space as gunfire ripped through the air. Malcolm tackled Nathan to the ground just as bullets shredded the chair where his father had been sitting seconds before. Eleanor dove behind an overturned table, clutching the laptop. Sparks flew as rounds struck the metal shelves, sending tools and debris crashing onto the concrete floor. Reynolds was the first to return fire. He took cover behind a stack of crates, squeezing off controlled bursts from his handgun. We have to move, he shouted over the noise. Malcolm helped Nathan to his feet. Eleanor, the stream, was it enough? She gritted her teeth, glancing at the broken laptop. I don't know. It went down before we could finish, but people saw it. It's out there. That had to be enough. It had to be. One of the tactical officers kicked over a crate, advancing with his weapon raised. Malcolm barely had time to react before a shot rang out. Reynolds had taken him down with a precise shot to the chest. But more were coming. Too many. The team was pinned down, and they were running out of options. Malcolm scanned the room, searching for an escape. The main entrance was a death trap, but the loading bay, if they could reach it, might be their only way out. Reynolds fired another shot, taking down a second attacker, but return fire forced him back behind cover. We can't hold them off forever, he shouted. Malcolm grabbed Nathan's arm. We're getting out of here now. Eleanor peeked from behind the table. The laptop's fried, but I uploaded partial files before we went dark. If we can get to a secure location, I can finish the job. That was enough for Malcolm. We go for the loading dock, he decided. Reynolds, cover us. Reynolds nodded. He fired a rapid burst, forcing the gunman to duck. Move! Malcolm and Eleanor helped Nathan toward the rear of the warehouse. A bullet whizzed past, shattering a fluorescent light above them. The air reeked of burning gunpowder. Just as they reached the loading dock door, A dark figure stepped into their path, the leader of the tactical team. He raised his pistol, aiming straight at Nathan. "It's over." Malcolm's heart pounded. No time to think. No time to hesitate. A single gunshot echoed through the warehouse, and someone collapsed to the ground. The gunshot rang out, deafening in the confined space of the warehouse. For a moment, everything stood still. Then, the leader of the tactical team staggered, his pistol slipping from his grasp. A red stain spread across his chest as he fell to his knees, then collapsed onto the cold concrete. Reynolds lowered his smoking gun, breathing heavily. "Go!" he barked. Malcolm didn't waste a second. He grabbed Nathan and pulled him through the loading dock door. Eleanor followed close behind, clutching the damaged laptop. Reynolds provided cover fire as they sprinted toward a parked delivery truck just outside. Malcolm threw the door open and helped his father into the passenger seat. Eleanor scrambled into the back. Reynolds was the last to reach them. He slid into the driver's seat and gunned the engine. The tires screeched as they sped away from the warehouse, leaving the chaos behind. "Is he okay?" Eleanor asked, glancing at Nathan. Nathan gave a weak nod. "I've had worse." Reynolds checked the mirror. No pursuit. Yet. Malcolm turned to Eleanor. "Tell me you got the files out." She exhaled sharply. "Not all of it, but enough. Enough to burn them." Malcolm's jaw tightened. This had to end. The truck rumbled down the highway, its headlights cutting through the darkness. Inside, the air was thick with exhaustion and adrenaline. Reynolds kept his eyes on the rearview mirror. No sign of pursuit, but they'll regroup fast. Malcolm turned to Eleanor. "We need to finish this, now." She nodded, already working on her phone. "I managed to send an encrypted backup before the laptop was fried. We just need one final push." She glanced at Nathan. "Are you ready?" Nathan straightened, pain evident in his movements, but his voice was steady. "Let's end this." Eleanor activated a secure video call to Judith Winters, the investigative journalist. The screen flickered, then Winters appeared, her expression shifting from surprise to urgency. "We don't have much time," Malcolm said. "We're sending you everything, the documents, the names, the evidence. We need it out now." Winters nodded. "I'll run it. By morning, the world will know." Nathan leaned forward. "Make sure they understand. This isn't just about corruption, it's about power, about how easily the system can be twisted." Winters' gaze was firm. "I won't let them bury this." Eleanor hit send. The files were gone from their hands, but in the hands of the world now. Malcolm exhaled, gripping the dashboard. It was done. The truth was out, and there was no taking it back.